Her name was At 21, she had walked into the small clinic at the edge of the city with a heart full of fear. The waiting room smelled faintly of medicine and disinfectant. She sat quietly, her dress modest and simple, her eyes lowered. Her hands refused to stay still, twisting together in her lap as though they carried the weight of her worry. She had not told anyone where she was going, not her parents, not her closest friend, not even the man whose name lived silently in her heart. For weeks she had felt the changes in her body, and the late nights had brought her the answers she did not want to face. But today, she needed certainty. The clinic was small, a single doctor with a tired nurse who shuffled papers at the counter. Aisha felt their glances brush past her, as though they knew more than she wanted them to. She kept her eyes down, watching the cracks in the floor tiles, listening to the ticking of the clock. Each tick seemed louder, sharper, demanding her attention. When her name was called, she stood with trembling legs. Her voice was quiet when she answered, barely more than a whisper. She walked through the narrow hallway into the doctor's office. The air inside was cooler, the blinds half closed against the afternoon sun. The doctor, an older man with grey hair, offered her a brief nod. He asked her why she had come, his tone neutral, professional. She explained in broken sentences, her voice faltering. She spoke of missed days, of feeling unwell, of needing to be sure. He listened without expression, writing notes on a small pad of paper. Aisha felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. She could barely breathe as he prepared the ultrasound machine. The hum of the machine filled the silence, and she lay back on the examination table. Her hands clutched the fabric of her dress, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. She thought of home, of her mother's soft voice, of her father's stern eyes. She thought of the world outside the clinic, moving on as if nothing had changed. And here she was, holding her breath, waiting for an answer that could alter everything. The doctor pressed the cold gel on her skin, and she shivered. The probe moved slowly, carefully, and then the room grew quieter still. His eyes narrowed as he stared at the screen, his lips tightening. Aisha turned her head, trying to read his expression. Fear rose inside her, sharp and suffocating. "Please," she whispered, "tell me." But the doctor did not answer. His hand froze for a moment, then moved again. His breathing grew heavier. Aisha saw something flicker across his face, something between disbelief and alarm. The air in the room shifted. She felt it before she understood it. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of the machine. Her pulse raced, her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. She wanted him to speak, to explain, to give her the truth she came for. Instead, he placed the probe down with shaking hands and reached for the phone on his desk. Aisha sat up quickly, her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor did not meet her gaze. His voice was firm, controlled, yet filled with urgency. "Stay where you are," he said. "I need to make a call." And before she could move, before she could speak again, he dialed a number with steady fingers. Aisha's heart pounded as the doctor spoke into the phone. His words were clipped, urgent, though she could not hear every detail. She caught fragments words like immediate, not normal, reporting. The sound of them made her chest tighten, her breath short and uneven. Her eyes darted to the ultrasound screen. She did not understand what she was looking at, only a blur of shifting grey and black shapes. Yet the doctor had reacted as though he had seen something more than just a child growing inside her, something that should not have been there. "Please," she whispered again, her voice almost breaking. "What did you see? Tell me." The doctor ended the call but did not look at her right away. He placed the phone down slowly, his hand lingering as though heavy with indecision. Then he turned, his face stern and guarded. "I need you to stay calm," he said. The words only sharpened her fear. Her fingers gripped the edge of the examination table. "Why? What is wrong with me?" He hesitated. "This is not a matter I can explain fully right now. Authorities are on their way. It is safer that way." Aisha froze. Authorities. The word echoed in her mind like thunder. She felt the ground slipping beneath her feet. Why would a doctor need to call authorities? She had come here quietly, for answers, for help. And now strangers were being brought into her life without her consent. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Authorities? Why would they come? I'm not a criminal. I just wanted to know if I was." She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. The doctor adjusted his glasses, his expression grave. "What I saw on the screen is not ordinary. It is not what we expect to see at this stage. It raises questions I cannot ignore. Do you understand?" But Aisha did not understand. All she could feel was panic rising inside her, pressing against her ribs, making her chest burn. She wanted to run, to leave this room, to escape the strange heaviness that had fallen over her. The nurse appeared in the doorway, her eyes flicking between them. The doctor gave her a quiet nod, and she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Aisha noticed the way she moved, cautious and deliberate, as if she were preparing for something serious. Aisha's lips trembled. "Please, tell me the truth. Am I sick? Am I dying?" The doctor's eyes softened for a brief moment, but then his voice grew firm again. "You are not dying, but what is inside you is not something I can explain with certainty. That is why I called. It is better for you if this is handled properly." Her heart raced faster. She wanted to believe him, to hold on to the small comfort of not dying. But the way he spoke, the secrecy in his tone, filled her with dread. Time seemed to stretch. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The ticking of the wall clock outside the office pierced through the silence like a drumbeat. Then came the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Firm, hurried, unyielding. Aisha's eyes widened. She turned toward the door just as it opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Their faces were serious, their movements controlled. One of them glanced at the doctor, who gave a small nod in return. The other officer's gaze settled on Aisha, sharp and watchful. She felt her throat close. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Why are they here? What did I do?" The doctor did not answer this time. The silence between them spoke louder than words. One officer stepped forward. "Miss, we need you to remain calm and come with us. We just want to ask you some questions." Her body stiffened. She clutched the thin fabric of her dress, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The world she had known, simple, ordinary, predictable, was slipping further away with each passing moment. Her mind screamed to protest, to explain, to demand answers, yet her voice faltered, trapped in the cage of her fear. And as the officers stood waiting, the image of the blurred shapes on the ultrasound screen haunted her. What had the doctor really seen? Why did it frighten him enough to call the police? The questions burned inside her, unanswered. As the room grew colder and the shadows deepened, the hallway felt longer than it was. Each step echoed against the dull walls, the sound of the officer's boots steady and heavy. Aisha walked between them, her fingers clutching her shawl so tightly her knuckles turned white. She wanted to run. Her body begged her to break free, to push past them, to burst through the clinic doors and vanish into the street. But her legs carried her forward in slow obedience, stiff and unsteady, as if her will no longer belonged to her. Behind her, the nurse stood in the doorway, her lips pressed tight, her eyes carrying something close to pity. The doctor remained inside his office, hidden from view. Aisha could not bear to look back at him. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, her voice small. The officer on her left answered, his tone even but firm. "Just outside for some questions, that's all." But questions from the police never felt like just questions. Aisha's heart pounded. She thought of her parents, of what they would say if they learned she was being escorted by officers. The shame alone would crush them. She had tried so hard to keep her struggles hidden, to bear them quietly, and now, here she was, being treated like someone guilty of a crime she could not even name. They reached the reception area. The waiting room was nearly empty. Only one man with a newspaper in his hands, staring blankly as though pretending not to notice. But his eyes lifted for a moment, and Aisha felt the burn of his judgment. She lowered her head quickly, wishing she could disappear. Outside, the afternoon light was soft, the sky brushed with pale grey. The officers guided her to a small police vehicle parked near the clinic gate. They did not push her, but their presence pressed against her like a wall she could not pass. "Please," she tried again, her voice trembling. "Tell me why. I came for help. I don't understand what is happening." The older officer, who seemed calmer, turned slightly toward her. "We're not here to hurt you." The doctor saw something unusual. "We have to check. That's our job." The words did not soothe her. Unusual. The same word the doctor had hinted at. But unusual in what way? She pressed her lips together, holding back the storm of questions in her mind. They asked her to sit on a bench near the gate while they spoke with the doctor privately. She obeyed, her body stiff, her mind restless. From her seat, she could see into the clinic window, where the doctor spoke in low tones, his hands moving, his face set with seriousness. The officers nodded as they listened, their eyes darkening with each passing moment. Aisha wrapped her shawl tighter. She felt the eyes of passers-by flicker toward her. To them, She might look like any young woman waiting outside a clinic, but in her heart, she carried a secret she did not even fully know. Her thoughts tumbled. What if she was ill with something rare? What if the life inside her was not normal, as the doctor said? What if this was the reason he had turned to the police, instead of helping her? The sound of footsteps pulled her back. The officers returned, their expressions unreadable. One of them spoke gently but firmly. "Miss, we'll need you to come with us to the station. There are procedures we must follow." Her stomach turned. The station? Why? I didn't do anything wrong. The officer sighed softly. "We know, but this is bigger than you think. Please, just come with us. It will be easier if you cooperate." The word bigger lodged in her mind. Bigger than her fear, bigger than the small life she thought she carried. She rose slowly from the bench, her hands trembling. The world around her felt distant, muffled, as though she were walking through a dream she could not wake from. The station meant questions, papers, strangers, but more than that, it meant she was stepping into something unknown, something she had not chosen. As they guided her toward the vehicle, she glanced back once at the clinic. The window blinds had been pulled shut. The building stood silent, holding inside it the secret that had brought her life to this point. And as the car door closed beside her, sealing her inside, she felt the weight of it settle over her. The ultrasound image, the doctor's call, the officer's words, whatever this was, it was no longer just about her. The police station was smaller than she imagined, quieter too. Aisha had expected noise, clattering phones, and stern voices. Instead, the office she was led into was calm, almost subdued, with only the faint hum of a ceiling fan breaking the silence. They guided her to a chair across from a desk. She sat down slowly, pulling her shawl around her shoulders as if it could shield her from the weight of their stares. Her eyes dropped to the wooden surface of the desk, scratched and worn from years of use. The officer who had spoken kindly before took a seat across from her. He opened a thin file, sliding a pen between his fingers as he looked at her with steady eyes. The younger officer stood at the side, his arms folded, watching. "Miss Aisha," the officer began, his voice calm, "we need to ask you a few questions. You are not under arrest. Do you understand?" She nodded, though the tightness in her chest made it hard to breathe. "I understand, but I don't know why I'm here. That's what we want to explain. The doctor contacted us because of what he saw during your scan." Her eyes lifted, wide with fear. "What did he see?" "He wouldn't tell me." The officer hesitated, his fingers tapping lightly on the file. According to his report, the image was not consistent with a normal pregnancy. There were irregularities, shapes that raised serious concern. Aisha's throat felt dry. "Irregularities? What does that mean? Am I sick?" "No," he said softly. "Not sick, but not ordinary either." The doctor described something unusual in the formation, something that did not match his medical knowledge. She stared at him, her heart pounding harder. "So why police? Why not another doctor?" The younger officer spoke for the first time, his tone sharper. "Because sometimes what doctors see is not just medical. Sometimes it involves matters of safety. That's why we were called." The words cut through her like ice. Safety? Whose safety? Hers, the child's, or something larger? She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to know if I was pregnant. That's all." The officer across from her leaned forward, his voice steady but gentle. "We believe you, but you must understand, this is not only about you." The doctor feared what he saw might point to something beyond normal medicine. And when things cannot be explained, we have to look deeper. The room grew heavy with silence. Aisha pressed her hands together in her lap, her fingers trembling. She felt as though she was standing at the edge of a truth too large to grasp. "What will happen to me?" she whispered. "For now," the officer said, "we just need to keep you under observation. There will be further examinations. Specialists will look at the results. You will not be harmed. But we cannot let you walk away without answers." Her tears slipped free, trailing silently down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly with the corner of her shawl, trying to hold her composure. The younger officer stepped closer, his gaze less harsh now. "You are not a suspect. You are a witness to something we don't yet understand. That is why we must be careful." The word witness struck her differently. It carried weight but also a strange kind of distance. She was no longer the center of blame, but rather someone caught in the middle of something she could not see. She took a deep, shaky breath. "Can I at least tell my family?" The older officer paused, then shook his head slowly. "Not yet. We need to be certain before involving others. If this is nothing, you can return to them quietly. But if it is what the doctor fears, then everything will change. Her eyes widened. Change how? He did not answer directly. Instead, he closed the file and pushed it aside. Rest for now. Later, you will be taken for another scan. That will give us clarity. The silence that followed was thick, filled with all the questions Aisha could not bring herself to ask. She sat still, her shawl wrapped tightly, her heart racing. In that small office, under the dim light, her world felt suspended. She was no longer just a girl seeking answers about her body. She was part of something larger, something hidden, something slowly drawing her deeper into its shadow. And as the officers stepped away, leaving her in the quiet hum of the fan, Aisha realized one truth with chilling clarity. The life inside her was not hers alone anymore. The hospital was brighter than the station. Its corridors filled with the steady rhythm of nurses' steps and the faint beeping of machines. Yet even here, Aisha felt the same weight pressing on her chest, the same uncertainty shadowing her thoughts. They had moved her quietly, not in handcuffs, not like a prisoner, but with the careful watch of officers who walked a few paces behind. She was not treated harshly, but she was not free either. Each step reminded her she was caught in something she had never asked for. Now she sat in a small room near the end of a quiet hallway. The walls were white, the floor polished, the window giving a view of the city in the distance. The hum of the machines filled the silence. A doctor entered, not the grey-haired man from the clinic, but a younger woman with kind eyes. She carried a folder and spoke softly. "Aisha, we will do another scan tonight. We need to be certain. Do not be afraid." The kindness in her voice gave Aisha a sliver of comfort. She lay back once more, the same cold gel pressed on her skin, the probe gliding slowly. The room dimmed as the machine flickered to life. The screen lit up. Shapes emerged, clearer this time, sharper. Aisha turned her head, her breath caught in her throat. She expected to see the small curve of a child, fragile and new. But what appeared was not like the images she had seen in books or whispered about with friends. The shape was too defined, too developed for the stage she was in. Small hands, small feet, a face forming earlier than nature allowed. Aisha's heart thudded, her eyes widened, her lips parted in shock. The doctor's voice was calm but steady. "It is a child, but its growth is faster than expected. Much faster." That is what concerned the first doctor. Her hands trembled on the fabric of her gown. She whispered, barely able to breathe, "Is it dangerous?" The doctor paused before answering. "Not dangerous to you, at least not yet, but it is not ordinary. The rate of growth, the clarity of the features, this is beyond what we understand." Tears welled in Aisha's eyes. Relief and fear tangled together. It was still a child, her child, yet marked by something beyond her control. The officers stood quietly in the corner, listening. One of them stepped forward. "So it is true then, not just a mistake." The doctor nodded. "No mistake. It is real." Aisha looked at them, her voice breaking. "Why the police? Why not just doctors?" The officer met her gaze. "Because things like this are rare. Sometimes they raise questions. Questions about where, about how, about why. We must be sure there is no danger, not only for you, but for others." She lowered her eyes, her tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She had come seeking a simple answer. Instead, she had been pulled into a world where her unborn child was not just hers, but a matter of concern to strangers. The doctor switched off the machine gently. "For now, you will stay here. We will monitor you. No harm will come to you or your child. But we cannot deny what we see. This is something different." When they left her alone, Aisha sat by the window. The city lights shimmered far away, each one a reminder of a world that kept moving while hers stood still. She pressed her hand gently against her stomach. A life was growing inside her, not ordinary, not explainable, but still life, still hers. The fear had not vanished, but alongside it grew something else. She whispered to the silence, to the small being she could not yet hold. "You are mine. Whatever they say, whatever they fear, you are mine." Her voice steadied as she spoke. "I will not let them take you. I will not let them turn you into something you are not. You are my child." The monitor beside her blinked softly, the only sound in the quiet room. The night stretched on, heavy with questions, but her heart found a small piece of calm. The world might look at her differently now. The authorities might see danger where she saw only hope. But within her, beneath the fear, She knew one truth that no scan or report could erase. She was a mother already, and that meant she would fight, she would endure. She would carry this life with her, no matter how unusual, no matter how misunderstood. Her eyes lifted to the stars beyond the city lights. They seemed distant, yet steady. She drew in a deep breath and let it out slowly. The uncertainty remained, but so did her strength. The story of what was inside her was not finished, but for the first time since she stepped into the clinic, she felt the power to face it. Aisha closed her eyes, her hand still on her stomach, and let the night wrap around her in silence.